Mr. Pryor, Mr. Daybell, can I get you to turn on your video, please? We'll go on the record here in Fremont County. Good morning to everybody. It is May 26, 2021. Case number CR 2221-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. Present here on the Zoom call, I have Mr. Daybell appearing with his counsel, Mr. Pryor. I have Mr. Wood, who represents the state. Also, Ms. Blake, who is here representing the state. I have a court reporter and someone from the Idaho Supreme Court for technical issues. This is the date and time for an initial appearance. Mr. Daybell, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you
I
hear
need
me?
you to speak a little bit louder, Mr. Daybell.
Yes, I can hear you.
Mr. Daybell, the purpose of today's initial appearance is to go through your rights, to talk about the date for future hearings, to talk about counsel, and a few other things. Mr. Daybell, would you review a copy of the notification of rights form that was sent down to the jail prior to this hearing today?
Yes,
Do you understand your legal rights here today?
I do.
Mr. Pryor, did you go through that notification of rights form with your client?
Yes, Your Honor, I did.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Daybell, did you receive a copy of the indictment that was filed on May 25th, 2021, a warrant that was filed on that same date?
Yes, I did.
Did you have a chance to review that with your counsel, Mr. Pryor?
He did, Judge, and we have no questions at this time.
Mr. Pryor, it's my understanding from a review of the notification of rights that your client is waiving a formal reading of the indictment. If it's okay with you, I'll just go through each charge and the maximum penalties. I'm not going to go through the allegation contained in the charge.
That's appropriate, Your Honor.
Ms. Blake or Mr. Wood, any objection to that?
No, Your Honor, I think that's appropriate.
No objection.
Right. Mr. Daybell, the indictment, like I said, is case number CR 2221-1623. It was filed on May 25th, 2021. In the indictment, there are 9 counts. I'm going to go through the counts that are relevant to your case. The first count is conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, as well as grand theft by deception. That count is punishable to the same extent as the underlying crime on the conspiracy. On the first part of that count, murder in the first degree, it's punishable by death or life imprisonment. If the death penalty is not sought, the court shall impose a life sentence, including mandatory minimum period of incarceration of 10 years. It carries up to a $50,000 fine or both. It also carries with it up to a $5,000 fine and restitution. With regards to the second part of count 1, conspiracy to commit grand theft by deception, that portion of the charge carries up to 14 years in prison, up to a $5,000 fine or both. Count 1 is an allegation of, like I said, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft. The murder relates to the victim and the death of TR, a minor. Count 2 is a charge of first-degree murder. It carries with it a maximum penalty punishable by death or life imprisonment. If the death penalty is not sought, the court shall impose life sentence, including mandatory minimum period of incarceration of 10 years. It carries up to a $50,000 fine and up to a $5,000 fine and restitution. It relates to the death of the minor child, TR. Count 3 is a charge of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception. That charge carries with it the same maximum penalty as count 1. In other words, it's punishable by death or life imprisonment. If the death penalty is not sought, the court shall impose a life sentence, including mandatory minimum period of incarceration of 10 years, a $50,000 fine and or up to a $5,000 fine and restitution. The second portion of that charge is conspiracy to commit grand theft by deception. That portion of the charge carries up to 14 years in the state penitentiary, up to a $5,000 fine or both. That count relates to the death of the minor child, JV. Count 4 is a charge of first-degree murder. That charge is punishable by death or life imprisonment. If the death penalty is not sought, the court shall impose a life sentence, including mandatory minimum period of incarceration of 10 years, a $50,000 fine, plus $5,000 fine and restitution. That count relates to the death of JV, a minor. Count 5 is conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. That charge carries with it the potential penalty of death or life imprisonment. If the death penalty is not sought, the court shall impose a life sentence, including mandatory minimum period of incarceration of 10 years, a $50,000 fine, plus $5,000 fine and restitution. That charge relates to the death of Tamara Daybell. Count 6 is a charge of first-degree murder. That charge carries with it punishment by death or life imprisonment. If the death penalty is not sought, the court shall impose a life sentence, including mandatory minimum period of incarceration of 10 years. Carries up to a $50,000 fine and a $5,000 fine and restitution. The next count related to your case is count 8. It's an allegation of insurance fraud. Insurance fraud, as it is charged, carries up to 15 years in the state penitentiary, a fine of up to $15,000 plus restitution. Count 9 is the last count. It is also a charge of insurance fraud. It carries up to 15 years in the state penitentiary, a fine of up to $15,000 or both plus restitution. Mr. Daybell, the maximum penalties of all of those counts carry up to, they could all run consecutively, one after the other, or they could run concurrently. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Pryor, have you had a chance to explain that to your client?
Yes, Your Honor, I have.
We'll proceed then. Very well. Mr. Daybell, you're appearing here today with Mr. Pryor. Do you wish to represent yourself? Do you wish to hire an attorney, Mr. Pryor, or would you like to seek application of a public defender?
Judge, Mr. Daybell has retained my office to continue representing him in this matter, and that's the way I anticipate going forward, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Daybell, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. All right, the next item of business is to set the arraignment. That arraignment will be in front of the district court judge. As of right now, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Wood, Ms. Blake, the court has available June the 9th in the morning. That's the date we will set that arraignment for. It's yet to be determined if that's going to be in person or via Zoom. That will be worked out at a later time and date. Also, the exact time of that arraignment on June 9th will be set by the court, and we'll send out final notice of that, but it will be in the morning on June the 9th. Does that work for everybody?
That will work for the state, Your Honor.
Yes, Judge.
We'll plan on that. Right now, the warrant has set forth no bail. Mr. Pryor, does that need to be addressed here today?
No, Judge.
Is there anything else we need to take up here today at this initial appearance, Mr. Wood or Ms. Blake?
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
Not from the state, Your Honor.
Mr. Pryor, anything else from the defense we need to bring up here today at this initial appearance?
Nothing further, Your Honor. May we be excused?
You may. Thanks, everybody, for appearing. We will be adjourned on this matter.